January 30th, 1968. Just after midnight, cities across South Vietnam were quiet as the Lunar New Year began. For American commanders, Tet was traditionally a period of reduced combat, and intelligence reports indicated no imminent nationwide enemy action. General William Westmoreland, commander of U.S. Military Assistance Command Vietnam, believed the war had entered a decisive phase in America's favor. Enemy casualty figures were high. Major urban centers were considered secure, and U.S. forces dominated conventional engagements. By the metrics that had defined industrial warfare since WWII, the system appeared to be working. What was not understood was that the enemy was no longer trying to defeat the American military system directly. By late 1967, U.S. strategy in Vietnam was built on quantifiable indicators of progress. Body counts, kill ratios, and territory controlled were used to measure success and predict eventual victory. This approach reflected a long tradition of industrial warfare where attrition determined outcomes. Westmoreland's strategy assumed that sustained losses would erode the enemy's capacity to fight. American firepower, mobility, and logistics reinforced this belief as U.S. units consistently won tactical engagements. Helicopter mobility, artillery concentration, and air support produced repeated battlefield success. From a purely military perspective, the evidence appeared convincing. The Viet Cong and North Vietnamese forces seemed unable to sustain prolonged conflict at such cost. What this assessment failed to recognize was that the opposing system did not measure success the same way. North Vietnamese leadership understood they could not defeat the United States through conventional warfare. They lacked air superiority, heavy armor, and industrial output comparable to American capacity. Instead, they pursued a strategy designed to undermine political will rather than battlefield strength. Territory was expendable, casualties were acceptable, and time was an advantage rather than a constraint. Units were rebuilt through recruitment and coercion, while supply routes through Laos and Cambodia remained functional despite bombing. By late 1967, forces and weapons had been quietly positioned across South Vietnam for a coordinated offensive. American intelligence detected increased activity, but interpreted it through conventional assumptions. A nationwide attack was considered irrational because it would expose guerrilla forces to destruction. That assumption was correct militarily and irrelevant strategically. The Tet Offensive began nearly simultaneously across more than 100 cities, towns, and military installations. Attacks struck Saigon, Hue Da Nang, and numerous provincial capitals, including locations previously declared secure. Even the U.S. Embassy compound in Saigon was briefly breached. On the battlefield, the offensive was a failure for the attackers. Viet Cong units suffered massive casualties, and many formations were effectively destroyed. American and South Vietnamese forces regained control of most areas within days or weeks. Yet the offensive achieved its true objective. It disrupted the system that sustained American confidence and legitimacy. Television images showed combat in cities the public had been told were safe, contradicting official assurances. The American military system responded efficiently and predictably. Units were deployed. Rapidly, WWII was concentrated, and tactical control was restored. From an operational standpoint, the response was effective. The political and informational systems reacted differently. Public trust eroded as official statements clashed with visible reality. The credibility gap widened as battlefield success failed to align with public narrative. North Vietnamese leadership understood this asymmetry. Their system was not constrained by public opinion or electoral pressure. Losses could be absorbed, and time could be extended indefinitely. For the United States, time required justification. Every month of war demanded renewed political support and public consent. Tet revealed that military success alone could not sustain that consent. In the months following the Tet Offensive, strategic momentum shifted decisively. Public support for the war declined sharply, and political pressure intensified. President Lyndon Johnson announced he would not seek re-election and peace negotiations began in Paris. U.S. forces continued to win engagements across Vietnam. However, the system that translated battlefield success into political purpose had fractured. Once that alignment was lost, military effectiveness could no longer determine the outcome. The Tet Offensive demonstrated a central reality of modern conflict. Wars are not decided solely by firepower production or tactical skill. They are decided by the interaction of military, political, and informational systems. Tet was not the moment the United States lost the Vietnam War. It was the moment the system that justified continuing the war stopped functioning.